Hello everyone, welcome to this first tutorial on getting started with Go. Firstly, I just want to congratulate everyone who is taking the time to watch this video. While I think teaching yourself programming is probably easier than most people realize, taking the initiative to get started is often the most challenging part. So I want to congratulate you on that. If you'd like to learn more about the Go programming language in general, I encourage you to check out my first video on why Go is the best programming language to learn in 2021. But let's go ahead and hop right into it. This is kind of the agenda or the outline for this particular video. Everywhere that you see a star is an area that I intend to cover that is often omitted by other tutorials. When I look at other tutorials, I see that they often leave out parts that I think are essential to kind of forming a complete picture of the Go language and the Go tools. So I encourage you to pay attention, especially during those sections of the videos, because it's those small details that are going to take you from being a good developer to a great developer. The first thing I'm going to do is open up the command prompt, and I'm just going to type Go version into here. Go version is the command that you would use to see if you have Go installed, and if you do, it will show you the version of the SDK. I do not have it installed, which is why I'm getting an error saying that the Go command is not recognized. In order to install Go, go ahead and open up your browser and go to golang.org. Now this here is the page for the Golang language. It has your documentation, your source code packages, information on the Go open source project. So go ahead and click on the downloads button. What it immediately presents is a number of different options based on your operating system. You can also choose the semantic version of the SDK that you want to download. You can pretty much see here that you can really download any version of Go that you want. The most recent version is 1.15.6, and I'm on Windows, so I'm going to select that. You should obviously select what is best for your operating system. Once the download is complete, you can go ahead and run the installer. Of course, you need to accept the license agreement, and then you can click Next and pretty much select all of the default options and click Install. Once your installation is complete, you can go ahead and hit Finish to close out of the dialog window, and you should be all set and ready to go. In order to verify our installation, we can open the command prompt back up, and it is important that you open a new command prompt. You can't use the same one that you opened at the beginning. Open that up and just try that Go version command again. Now you can see that I have version 1.15.6 installed. If you do still get an error message, as I said, make sure you opened up a new command prompt. And if you're still getting it, I would advise that you reinstall Go, then come back to this screen and try it again. Before I close out of this window, there's just some additional information or functionality that I'd like to share with you guys behind the Go tooling. If you just type Go into the prompt and hit Enter, it will provide you with a list of options that you can use in conjunction with the Go command. A lot of these options have to be followed up with a specific file name, a specific Go file, but not all of them. As you can see, we have Go version on the list, which we've already used. The Go build command would be followed by a file name. So you type Go build and then the name of the file, and that would compile your Go program. Go format is one that I use often because it auto indents your code and makes it look like you know what you're doing. And then Go run, which we'll use in a minute, actually compiles your code and then runs your Go program for you. So it actually runs Go build before it actually runs your program. You can use the help command to find out additional information on any one of these individual options. For example, one of the more useful help sections is the section that covers the documentation. So I can type Go help doc here, and it immediately provides me with examples, usage examples or how I can use the documentation command. And what it says at the top here is basically that you can use the documentation command to find out the details of any specific package within the Go SDK. So you can find out the functions, the methods, the interfaces, the structs. So it's just useful to learn more about a specific package. So I'll take a look at this one. The encoding/JSON package is saying that you can use go.json. So I'll type that in here. Like I said, it shows you the interfaces and structs of this package. That's just kind of a useful command, and there's a lot more I could get into with the tooling, but it's just good to know that Go provides you with a number of different ways to interact with the SDK through the command line interface. The next thing I'll demonstrate is how to install your IDE and get that set up to start programming with Go. When it comes to your IDE, you have a number of different options. One of the more popular options is Visual Studio Code. This is a code editor not for just Go, but for a number of different programming languages. And it allows you to install extensions that provide some additional functionality for whatever program you're working with. So things like syntax highlighting, suggestions, things of that nature. So this is a popular code editor, and one of the perks of it is that it's free, so you don't have to worry about paying a dime for this. Although this is a popular code editor, I typically don't use this one when I'm programming with Go. Actually, I prefer to use one that is called Goland. And this is a IDE that is developed by JetBrains. And I prefer to use this one because it's an editor that is specifically made for Go. I used Visual Studio when I first started programming with Go, and it worked okay, but I felt like I found myself messing around with the configurations and the plugins and extensions just a little bit too much. I felt like I was spending too much time having to update those things. And when I switched to Golang, I felt like it saved me quite a bit of time. I guess you could say one of the downsides of Golang is that it's not free. You do have to pay for it, although you do get a free 30-day trial, which I think is long enough to determine if you actually like the software or not. And if not, obviously you can always go back to Visual Studio Code. But there are special offers that allow you to get it for free or at least at a discount. For example, if you're a student or teacher, you get it completely for free, which is what I did. Also, if you're a part of a nonprofit organization, you can get it for up to 50% off. So it's really personal preference. Within this course, I'll show you guys how to install both Visual Studio and Golang, and you guys can kind of make the decision for yourselves. But I would advise that you at least give Golang a try. Like I said, it will save you a bunch of time, and I'm not affiliated with JetBrains, so I don't get a cent for recommending that. But the first thing I'll do is show you guys how to install Visual Studio Code. So you can skip to the part that applies to you, and then the next section will be setting up our Go program. In this section of the video, I'll show you guys how to install Visual Studio Code. If you prefer to use Golang or another IDE, you can go ahead and skip this section and fast forward to the part where we set up our first Go project. But to install Visual Studio, if you just search for it in your search engine, it should be pretty easy to find. You can click on the download section, and it presents you with options as far as your operating system. So I'll click the one that works for me. After it's finished downloading, you can go ahead and run the installer. Of course, you have to accept the license agreement. I would advise selecting the default installation options. Just click through, and the installation shouldn't take too long. Once the installation is complete, it should automatically launch Visual Studio for you. And I'll give just a brief overview of the UI here. To the left at the top, you have your file or directory explorer. So that allows you to kind of look at the hierarchy and the folders within your projects. This here is the search icon. It allows you to find specific text or files in your project. This is the source control icon. It allows you to connect to a remote repository. Then you have your debugging, and then you have the tool or the search option for extensions. So we're going to go ahead and type Go in here. And the extension that we want to install is this first one here. When I click it, you can see that it's got just over 4 million downloads, so it's probably the most popular Go extension, and it's by Golang.go. Mine is already installed because I did have Visual Studio installed before, but go ahead and click the install button, and that may take just a little bit. If you want to see the actual features that this extension is providing, you can click on the Feature Contributions tab, and it will show you a brief description of the functionality provided by this extension. Once your extension is finished installing, you can go ahead and exit out of this. You just have one more step. In order to enable the full functionality of this extension, we actually have to install some tools on top of it. So go ahead and hit Control-Shift-P on your keyboard, or Command-Shift-P if you're on Mac, and that should bring up a prompt at the top. We want to type in go install/update tools. This is the option that we want. Once you select it, it will bring up a list of tools that can be installed on top of the extension. Select the box at the top, and that will select all of them, and then you can go ahead and click OK. This installation will take probably around 5 minutes, but once it's complete, you should be all set and ready to code with Go in Visual Studio. In this section of the tutorial, I'll show you guys how to install Goland. If you already have an IDE installed, you can go ahead and skip past this section of the video to the part where we set up our first Go project. To install Goland, it's pretty straightforward. Just search for it in your search engine. Click the download option there. I'm actually not going to click download because I already have it installed. But once you click download, it will download the installer. Click the installer to run it. All of the questions are pretty straightforward. It's just asking you things like the installation location and some other options. I would advise clicking all of the default options, and then once the installation is complete, it will actually present you with this screen. Here it's asking you to either activate a license or evaluate for free. If you somehow got a license by either paying or through one of the free membership options, go ahead and select that and enter your information to activate that license, or you can select evaluate for free and you will be able to use the software for 30 days with no license. After you've done that, go ahead and exit out of Goland, and in the next section, we'll create our first Go project. At this point, regardless of what IDE you have chosen to use, you should be ready to set up your first Go project. But before we get into that, I want to briefly cover a topic that I often see omitted in other Golang tutorials, and that relates to Go modules. As of Go 1.13, Go modules is the correct way to set up your Go project. Prior to the existence of Go modules, programmers needed to set up their project using something called Go workspaces. And modules was introduced to solve some issues around dependency management and versioning, which is maybe a little bit too detailed and outside of the scope of this course. But one of the benefits of Go modules is that it allows you to set up your Go project in any directory you want to, in any place on your operating system. With workspaces, you have to set up your project in a very specific folder alongside the Go SDK installation. And even now in 2020, I see new Golang tutorials instructing people to set up a Go workspace. That is incorrect. That is an outdated way of setting up your Go project. And so this course will certainly be taking advantage of Go modules. But I just want to point that out because that is an important distinction. And I do encourage you to Google that and read up on the difference between workspaces and modules when you get a chance. All right, we have officially made it to the last section of this course where we will create our own Go project and run it. As I just mentioned, Go modules allows you to install a Go project in any location you want to on your operating system. So go ahead and select your directory of choice and create a folder. I'm going to create one here in my documents directory, and just name it first Go project. And just save that there. Then open your IDE. Shouldn't matter what IDE you use at this point. And I want you to navigate to the spot where you saved that directory and open it. When you first open that folder in your IDE, you'll notice that there's of course nothing in it. So the next thing that we're going to do is initialize our Go modules. And you do that with this command go mod init followed by the module name. If you plan to only store your modules on your computer, it really doesn't matter what name you give the modules, but if you plan to store it in a repository, it's common practice to follow this naming pattern. And that pattern is the repository followed by the username followed by the name of the project. And that, as I mentioned, is called module initialization. Now if I go to the directory, you see that it's created a go.mod file for me. So this is officially a module, and just so you know, a module is really any directory that has a collection of Go files with a go.mod file in it. When I open that file, there's not much in here. All you see is the module name and the current version of Go that I'm using. But as we add dependencies and packages to our project, they will automatically be populated here. And they're populated under what's called directives. I won't go into detail on those, but the most basic directive is called a required directive. And that simply lists out all of the minimum required versions of any given dependency within your project. So now that we've got a go.mod file, let's go ahead and create our first Go file. Go ahead and create a file and name it main.go. If you're in Visual Studio Code, it may not automatically create this package declaration at the top. But in any case, what we want to do is actually name this package main. In order to run any executable program in Go, at the very least, you have to have a package main and you must have a func main. The func main, or function called main, is the entry point for an executable program in Go. So these are the basic parts of a Go program. There's a third part, which is the imports, but as we'll see in a moment, that part will actually automatically be included whenever you make a call to another package. So as you can see, when I make a call to the format package, it automatically imports. And the format package is the library you use to do any type of printing to the console or any type of string interpolation. But I'll just keep it simple here. I'll type in, of course, the standard hello world string there. And at this point, you should be able to run your Go program. So open your terminal. If it's not already open, make sure that you have CD'd into the project directory, and you can now run go run main.go. And you can see that it prints out hello world. Earlier, I mentioned that whenever you execute the go run command, it first builds the program for you. So it's possible for us to just run the build command by itself. The result is an executable file that you can run just by typing the name of the file. And you see I get the same result. That does it for this tutorial video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Please subscribe to be updated as I release new videos throughout this series. And if you enjoyed the content, please give the video a like. Thanks for watching Esoteric Tech. I'll see you in the next tutorial.